Welcome to Season 4 of the Knack for Business podcast.
Today, I thought we'll talk about why your business may be closed to millions of people. We're going to focus a lot on that accessibility, but also the one asset of your website. So let's get ourselves started. I may be asking some of you questions halfway through. I tend to do that, so don't be surprised if I call your name out to unmute yourself and answer a question or two. So, what is it about the people that are not getting to your business, and why should it matter? Well, in the US and the rest of the world, we're talking about 1 in 4 people have some form of disability. And when you consider that 25, 26%, and that percentage does change a little bit as we look around different countries in the world, it's very relevant that if online content is not easy to understand, not easy to access, people do the one thing that is so easy to do, and that's leave. And you don't have to have a disability to have poor content online. A lot of it, we will find and discuss a little bit later, could just be the user interface. Maybe you haven't designed it well. But when we look at some of that information, one of the biggest things that turn off most people from coming to your website is that visual attractiveness. Is it attractive? Probably not. And that is where people will leave. We also have to remember the type of devices that people will actually be using. So let's break this down a little bit more. I said 150 million because, when we talk about that, we're not only talking about just people with disabilities. There's a lot of ailments and maybe partial disabilities, temporary disabilities that don't get classed into those figures, which will relate to people being permanently disabled. So who are they? And let's have a little bit of a breakdown here. So just think about this. The older generation, quite often, most of us know somebody, or we may even have gone through it, is a visual impairment, cataracts. Not a disability, but will last for most patients between 1 to 2 years, depending on the health system, the health plan that you have, or even how long it takes you to have either one or both eyes done. There are around a lot of people with hearing impediments, and this happens to be a lot younger too, especially with those that tend to use a lot of time with headphones and earbuds. We are noticing that these people tend to have higher hearing difficulties. With that, we consider, well, how do we access and give information? This is where the closed captioning came on. This also helped people in busy environments, maybe if they're out in public or they don't want to disturb their partner. What normally happens is that we read closed caption as a choice of option. So your video content should also be having captions there. There are people with sports injuries, nursing mums, temporary conditions, especially if you use a mouse. Ideally, your alternative to a mouse would be a keyboard navigation. So these are people that tend to not be classed as people being disabled, but certainly impaired from maybe accessing the content online. So I'm going to break this down. Accessible to all. We often hear a little bit, are you enabling your visitors? We hear about mobile first versus mobile friendly. What is that? Well, mobile first, your website should really be designed to run on a mobile device. 80% of those people that access content online will pick a mobile device first. Days have gone where web developers should be building a website with a menu system at the top because most people only have the patience to scroll down your screen 7 times. And if your core actions are way back at the top of the screen, I don't want to scroll 14 times to go to the next page or about you or find out what your services are. They should be scattered down through your web page. You should have a hero section. The hero section dictates to people what solution you are offering to your visitors. We don't care who you are or what you are at this point, but we will later when we want to validate you or even turn out to the point of, do we like you? Do we trust you? That all comes later. You should make the 3-second rule very important. If your message and answer is not delivered within the first 3 seconds, most people tend to leave your website. So you have a small window of opportunity, and this is how we make things accessible to everybody. So, let's have a look at some other details. Should we do it ourselves? Should we hire somebody? Well, benefit of hiring somebody, they could actually help you to save money. not only spend your money, we can actually offer IRS tax credits, especially if you're in North America, mainly USA. You can get tax credits for having online content that's accessible. That would go to a long way to building your website. If you have tools that actually allow you to change elements on your website, make more people follow your website and share content, read content. These are tools which could have a monthly cost and are still claimable every year in North America. A lot of people may have heard me talk about WCAG. They are the standards in which website content should be built for your websites. Back of to WCAG 2, which was 2008, they had 61 elements. Up to last year, we're now up to 86 elements. When it first started, it had 9 elements on how an online content website should be looked and interacted. If we do it ourselves, there are a lot of free online tools. The problem is they don't go into the depth and the breadth of making your online content available because it's only given you what you ask for. Again, if you are not the expert, the content creator, you can't ask for something you don't know. And this is one of the biggest failures of online content today, that content is only created by an individual, the business owner. We understand there are costs, maybe a limited budget, but at the end of the day, if you don't know what you're asking for, do you have time to wear multiple apps? Because at the end of the day, you are here as the expert that you claim to be. You promote the authority that you have in the industry and the service you provide, not all the multitask that we often try to elaborate upon. So I'm going to break down some of the legal elements. You will win. The point is, you can get in trouble. Yes, this is the ugly part of this. Most websites, if they're not accessible, it's much easier for people to hire a lawyer to send you a demand letter saying your website's inaccessible. And this year, in April 26, the DOJ have stated that any government or state business or even third party funded by the government needs to have a website that's accessible. Which means if you think about those who get funding from governments, it's not going to take long for the smaller industries and the smaller businesses also to be compliant. So this is a good time to actually start doing this before the mad rush. Of course, there'll always be somebody out there who's an ambulance chaser and is always looking for ways to find websites that are accessible. And I can explain some of those for you a little bit later. Okay, so, do a pop quiz for you. This is just a very simple one. I'm just going to go with the people in order on my screen. Can you pick a button that you often see on websites that may not be in access? That the yellow one that says referring to, or the one with information? Information. That is an accessible. Is why we're here to educate. The reason that it's accessible because it tells you exactly what it is. I click here and I will get information. Might not be well described, but at the end of the day, it's better than some of the others here. Can you find one that's certainly not accessible? Their information. If we think of people using screen readers, the screen reader would actually read the text within the button and anything else that's in the coding. Graphical buttons on your website don't help people with visual impairments, especially if they're colored. You take the one that's the home icon, for instance. If you recognize it as being home, that's great. But if you have a visual impairment and you don't know what the icon is, a screen reader is not going to understand what that graphic is. In the same way, when we often put a play button on a video, we all know it's a little triangle and a round circle, but if you don't put play video next to it, it could be well missed by screen readers, and people with vision impairments would skip over your most important hero section video of your website. So there are a few little samples of what is good. The best one here actually is the quantity. The quantity has the number in it. There's a drop down menu. You change the number you want, and you can either add to cart or buy now. It's giving you options. That is the best type of button and information that you would put on a website. Let me come back slightly. I want you to all listen what it sounds like for somebody with a screen reader. So let me quickly. This is what people with a screen reader will navigate your website and how it sounds.
Cut menu. Skip to accessibility menu link. Paleo Valley logo link graphic. Free shipping on US orders over 75. Join the club button. E-login button. List with 6 items. Snacks and drinks link. Supplements link. New products link. All products link. Contact link. J support Paleo Valley com link. Empty link 1 button. Thoughtfully sourced, gut-friendly nutrition designed to support everyday wellness link graphic. Bestsellers heading level 2.
Now, I'm not sure what you thought about that, but the voice isn't great for people with screen readers. It's very robotic. Some of the things you may have noticed as you were reading across the top, it gave you the title of the website, free shipping on US orders over 75. Over 75 what? It missed out that the currency was dollars. Now, obviously, if it was Canadian dollars or Australian dollars, or we don't know that because we haven't identified which country that this website belongs to. One thing you may have heard right near the very one, there is an empty button. Now, if anybody wants to know what that empty button was, this was the empty button. I've highlighted it here. It was the checkout cart. So even if you were purchasing on the whole website with a screen reader, and this is classed as an accessible website, but it's not quite perfect yet, the cart. So when I wanted to finalize my purchase, I would never have been able to find it because it was an empty button. Like I say, this is where people with visual disability will come and use their screen reader, and we quite often overlook this with people who are visually building their websites and not bearing in mind that people do use alternative devices. So, as we wrap up, how can I help you to become more accessible? There are a couple of ways of doing this. You can have a look to see if your website is accessible. You could scan the QR code here. Do you have any questions or doubts? I'm sure you do. Are you claiming for your tax credits? This is a very good way for you to actually reduce the cost of the build of your website, the services that are provided for your online content. And it's just not only your website. It can be PDFs, forms, anything else that you put online, all cover under those tax credits. And I would appreciate to share and have that informal chat with you, and let's connect. And the best way to connect with myself is here. Again, there is a QR code. Here are my contact details. You can either call me, use my email address at trevor@thewebdetective.online, or follow some of my social media elements. So these are the things I have.
To reach the podcast hosts, email them at info@creativeinsight.com or by the website creativeinsight.com, spelled KREATIVISIGHT.com. To reach Wayne at his email, wayne@motive8u.ca, that is MOTIVE, the numeral 8 and the letter u.ca, or his website, motive8u.ca. If you would like to be a guest on this podcast and share your knowledge, let us know. We would also appreciate your feedback on the content or format. Check the show notes for more details. For these podcasts, we like to acknowledge the support and thanks to the following people. Carl Richards from Podcast Solutions Made Simple, a renowned podcast expert. Fred Crouch, who is the Property Wizard podcaster, where Bernie is a co-host. Jovan Strika from At Hive, a co-working space that is more than just a space. Then Melanie Weber, Bernie's invaluable business partner, and Wayne Pratt from Motive8U Inc., who serves as both a coach and co-host of these podcasts. Disclaimer. Please note that the Knack for Business podcast episodes are meant solely for educational and general informational purposes. The information and opinions contained within are not intended to be professional advice on any subject matter. The thoughts, views, and opinions expressed by the participants are their own personal beliefs and do not represent the views of the podcast hosts or any affiliated organizations. It is important to note that this podcast is not a replacement for consulting with certified experts in your area who possess knowledge of your unique situation. The hosts of the podcast, along with any participants or affiliated groups, do not take responsibility for any actions taken or not taken based on the information presented in this episode. It is highly recommended that individuals seek guidance from their own personal advisors in fields such as accounting, law, or other pertinent areas prior to undertaking any actions or making decisions that may impact their financial, legal, or other aspects of life.